Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, HSP and introvert who's passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, and as always, I hope this episode finds you well. I have been down with a bit of a virus, and you'll have to let me know if this has happened to you recently. It was like a really razor sharp sore throat that then went into me losing my voice, and then I had all of the kind of aches and pains and just generally not feeling well at all. And this week I'm feeling much more myself, which is great, but one of the things that happens to me quite often, my throat is generally my area of weakness, which sounds really bad. I hate using the word weakness, but it seems to be where any virus that I have attacks first. And what happens often after I've had a virus like this is that my throat takes a little bit longer, my voice takes a little bit longer to get over it. And I find that talking for long periods of time, especially when I like to talk really fast and I rush through things, which I often do, it triggers like a coughing fit. And this happened yesterday. I went into my Facebook group to record a masterclass, my weekly masterclass that we do. And I was so embarrassed. I was about 2 to 3 minutes in, maybe a little bit longer, but not much at all. And I could feel this coughing fit come on. And if you've ever experienced anything like it, you know what I mean. Your eyes are streaming. You know that you are not going to be able to stop coughing. And it happened. And obviously, because it's in a masterclass, I can see myself in the video. And I was thinking, oh my God, I can see my eyes watering already. And I was really struggling to get my words out. And so I had to cut the masterclass short. I apologise to the group and then try and do it later. And I did it later, and I did it via Zoom, and I uploaded it to the Facebook group because with Zoom we have the beauty of pause. So I am hoping that I won't need that button today, but if I do, it's there. I do have a hot drink and a cold drink because the hot drink seems to really help. Again, it feels like that nice burn as it's going down the throat. It feels like it's actually killing some of the badness off. You'll have to let me know if that resonates with you. I would love, always invite you to reach out and tell me how you're doing. How is life at the moment? Have you had a sore throat? What have you found that has helped? Just always do check in. I always respond to all emails, so I love hearing from you. Anyway, that is not what we're talking about today. Today we are really talking about a sneaky story that comes up for a lot of us across leadership roles. And I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur, because I consider you a leader as an entrepreneur as well, or whether you're a leader in a corporate role. I think this is one of the sneaky stories that can often come up that really stops us from stepping up into our potential. It stops us from expanding, from growing, because it's, like I said, it's really sneaky. And it's really sneaky because we truly believe it's true. And we think it's about other people and not about ourselves. And I feel that when we make something about somebody else, it's almost like we lose control. Like, well, we don't have to worry about that. I can't do anything about that because it's about somebody else. But this one is actually about us. We think it's about somebody else, but it's not. It's actually about us. So I want to delve into this, and I want to kind of share my thoughts and ideas. And again, reach out, talk to me if this is coming up for you. So this is deeper than just self-belief, because all of my clients, without exception, have self-belief in themselves in varying degrees. Obviously, sometimes we have to work on that a little bit, but there's always something there, because they wouldn't be asking for the support. They wouldn't be doing what they're doing if they didn't have some self-belief there, some idea that, yes, I can do this. So it isn't about that. This is about identity and that story around how we see ourselves. It's very much about what you are telling yourself about what you think is possible for you. And these stories deeply impact not just what you do, but how you do it, and ultimately the results you see or don't see. So it really is a huge part of the puzzle, I feel, especially if you're feeling resentment or frustration because you want to be stepping into that next role, but it's not quite happening. So I've got some stories here. This is kind of, again, entrepreneurship based, but you can think about it in a leadership role as well, in terms of, going for promotions and things like that. So say you're having a conversation with somebody in the DMs, like on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, and there is a possibility here that this person might want to work with you, but you've assumed that they're too successful, too rich, too confident, too whatever the story is that you want to insert there, to ever want to work with you. And without even realizing it, you shrink back. You don't make the invitation. You never fully show them what you can do, not because you don't believe in yourself, but because of how you see them and where you place yourself in relation to them. So you're almost putting them on a pedestal and thinking, oh, they never need me, or they'll go for somebody else. They'll go for, I don't know, again, insert whatever story is going on in your head. But it's very much, there's a gap between you and that potential kind of client, that potential person to work with. It feels like, or in terms of leadership, it might be that role, that next role. There feels like there's this gap. And what we're doing, and it's so sneaky, and our brain is so clever here, it is making it about somebody else. And so we have that kind of almost like reassurance, but not necessarily in a positive way, that reassurance that we can't do anything about it because it's about somebody else. It's not about us at all. It's about them. They're too, rich, confident, successful to ever want to work with me. And if we look at that in a leadership role, we can say, if it's a promotion, well, they're never going to promote me. So and so over here is so much more blah blah blah, etc. Whatever the story is, they'll be so much more suited to the role than me. I'm never going to. You see what I mean? So we make it about somebody else, and therefore we are kind of blameless. Whereas in effect, when we dig a little bit deeper, we can say, actually, this is a story. This is my story, and I'm just putting it on somebody else. And there's no blame here. This is not something we are consciously doing. This is very subconscious. Say, for example, and again, this one has happened to me in the past, someone you perceive as confident or having it all together signs up for your masterclass. And instead of thinking, wow, that's amazing, you start to doubt what you've actually created in your masterclass, and you start to think, oh, maybe I haven't gone into enough detail. Maybe I need to add more. Maybe I need to shift something or change something. Because again, that self-doubt's coming in because you assume that that person is better than you. I hope that makes sense so far. So when this identity gap is full in play here, like we've said before, it doesn't just affect the what, so the actions you take or don't take, but it really does affect the how. It affects your energy behind what you're doing. So whether that's your words, your body language, the way you're approaching something, whether that be a piece of content or whether that be a promotion or maybe a next step in your role. And people can feel that. They really can. This really does have a ripple effect, and it creates a self-fulfilling cycle. So you're holding yourself back from taking the action. And then even when you do take the action, your energy is feeling misaligned. It doesn't feel quite there. And then this creates a frustration because, you do believe in yourself. Like, I am good at what I do, but my results aren't reflecting that. So what's going on? And if you don't rewrite these identity level stories, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of working so hard without actually seeing the benefits that you really truly deserve. So I've got some steps here to kind of work through that. These are things that I found useful for me and things that I've covered with clients in varying degrees. And I really would love to hear what has worked for you, or if you're going to implement one of these steps. So step one is really embracing that beginner's mindset and knowing that sometimes there is an element of practice here or mastery, and there's a myth that you should be able to do a skill straight away. So if we take entrepreneurship, there's very much a myth that you should be able to sell anything, but actually selling, marketing, those things are very much skills that we need to learn, and we don't necessarily have them straight away, and they do take time to master. And if you need to get better at something, that doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you're human and you are learning and mastery. And, even in teaching, this is something I say to the students all the time. is you can't learn without making mistakes. And I could go off a tangent here and talk about how education isn't necessarily set up for that, and how we take this through into adulthood, and we're so scared of making mistakes that we don't move, that we don't do anything. And this really kind of hinders any growth, any expansion, because we're too scared to make those mistakes. We're too scared to be wrong. And I know this isn't quite what we're talking about here, but I do think there's a crossover of really learning to embrace that beginner's mindset, being okay with making mistakes, being okay with being the new person who's learning something, and that being okay. So you could be the best coach, service provider, leader in your particular industry, your niche. But there may be skills that you need to master in order to get to the next step, and that's okay. That doesn't take away from the fact that you're good at what you do. It just means there's another skill set there that we need to learn in order to improve, in order to move on, in order to expand. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It can be an and here. And I think this is something I've really embraced over the last I'd say 3 or 4 years, is that it doesn't need to be an either or. This doesn't need to be about, well, I can either do this or I can't do this. This can be an and situation. Like, I can be good at what I do and still need to learn some skills to get to that next step. So there is this very much beginner's mindset that we can embrace. The second thing is awareness. Now, I'm going to come at this from 2 different angles because I really want it to be clear what I mean here. First of all, we can't change something we are not aware of. We don't know what we don't know at the end of the day. But also, we don't need to be fully healed in order to expand, in order to grow. I hope that makes sense, those 2 things. You can hold them both. You can have more awareness. You can have an understanding of what triggers you, what stories you're telling yourself. But you don't have to have healed all of that in order to expand, in order to grow. And the reason that I say this is because that I think there is this misconception that you need to be high vibe, amazingly positive all of the time, always looking for solutions, never moaning, never kind of having any negative days. And I just think that's really wrong. It kind of has that toxic positivity where we're looking so much at the positive that we're not actually facing what's in front of us and dealing with that. But if we've got awareness, that can be really supportive, because then we get to respond differently. If we have no awareness, we haven't got a clue. We're just automated, going through the motions, reacting and responding in the same way that we always have. But if we add in awareness and we start to realize what's going on, then we can catch ourselves, we can pause, we can decide, do I want to respond like this? How can I change my response? What do I really want to do in this situation? And then that's where that shift can come in. Notice I'm not talking about going to the root or healing ourselves here, although absolutely that can be really supportive in certain situations. But I'm just talking about this awareness, just really understanding that first point of, oh, this assumption is coming up again. This assumption that that person is never going to want to work with me, or that job is just too much, too much of a jump for me. That assumption that we're not there yet, that we can't ask that of that ourselves or that particular position or job. And I really would love to encourage you here to kind of pause and ask yourself, why not me? Why not me? And that builds on the next step, which is, I love me some journaling. You write down pieces of evidence that proves that you are good enough to want that next step, to want those next things. They can be quite small things, they can be big things, but it is so important to acknowledge when you have those pieces of evidence, because our brain will always find evidence for whatever story you tell it. So if we tell our brain a different story, it will start to find evidence for that. So if we start to tell our brain, actually, that I'm not going to put that person on a pedestal, I'm not going to put that job on a pedestal, I can do that job, I can sign those clients, What's the evidence I've got so far that shows me that I'm really good? When I put my mind to it, I do succeed. Where is my evidence that actually I've made a really good impact on the role that I'm doing right now? All of these different questions can really support you in providing your brain with that evidence to tell your brain a different story. The other part of this that I always like to join in here, because some people do find maybe the evidence a little bit tough to start off with, it can be quite slow because we are so used to finding the negative evidence rather than the positive evidence. We all have negative bias to a certain, different degrees. It will always feel easier to find that negative. And it can be a real skill and a real practice to find those positive pieces of evidence. So the second part of this, which sometimes is easier for a lot of clients, is to celebrate your wins. Now, this might seem like it's the same thing, but it's not, because your wins don't necessarily have to be result wins. It could be process driven. So I said that I was going to reach out to 5 different people today, and I did. There's a win. That is something to be celebrated. It is those process wins that are just as important as those result wins. So celebrating those, sometimes I find it a good kind of entry level into this kind of work, especially if we're not used to looking for positive evidence. So start with those wins. Start with your process wins, start with your result wins, and then build up to writing that evidence down to tell your brain a different story. The last one is a little bit more kind of inner world work, but I think it's really powerful. And again, you can do this through journaling if that's your thing, or you can actually sit down and do it as like a visualization meditation. And this is where you sit down in a quiet, calm space and you visualize a scenario where someone you once would have put on a pedestal approaches you, and you really imagine how you would feel in that scenario. How would you respond? How would you confidently talk to them? And just leaning in to your senses. So how would you, even in things like how would you hold yourself? How would you communicate? How would you move? Those sort of questions. So you're really stepping into what that would feel like if you allowed yourself to see somebody as an equal. And again, like I said, you can do this as a journaling or you could do it as a visualization, but really leaning into those. And I do have some journal prompts for those people who want to go away and have a deeper think about this. And I'm going to put them in the show notes as well. So you can kind of just go in there and copy and paste them. But these are the 10. I'm going to read them out because I know when I'm listening to podcasts, sometimes that is the time I have to ponder. So the first one is, what stories do I currently tell myself about who my ideal clients are and who I am in relation to them? Number 2, where do I notice myself shrinking back, holding back, or making assumptions about what others think? Number 3, when was the last time I doubted myself or my offer, not because of its quality, but because of who I imagined would see it? Number 4, if I fully believed I was good enough, how would I show up differently in my business today? Number 5, what evidence do I already have that proves I am skilled, capable, and ready for bigger opportunities? Number 6, imagine a dream client approaches you. Describe in detail how you confidently respond using all 5 senses. That really builds onto that visualization and journaling idea that I gave you earlier. Number 7, what identity shift do I need to make to step into the next level? Number 8, where am I waiting to be fully healed or fully ready before taking action? And how can I move forward now as I am? Number 9, what assumptions have I been making about others that might actually be holding me back? And number 10, why not me? Write a page or as much as you can answering this question as if you're proving to yourself that you are that person for the job. I would love to know what comes up for you here. And I want you to remember the stories you tell yourself about who you are will either hold you back or propel you forward. And I really hope today you've taken that first step in starting to rewrite these stories, or even just to question these stories that might come up for you. The biggest thing I want you to take away, I think, is please don't think that you have to be perfect or fully healed to grow into this next version of yourself. You do need awareness, because as soon as you have that awareness, you have that power to change or to shift or to respond differently. And you have the courage to choose a new story, but you don't need to be all positive, all glowing, all high vibe. I hope that makes sense. If this really lands with you and you're thinking, I would love to dig into this work deeper, I'm taking a little bit of a scary step myself. My fully booked number has always been 6. And I've been feeling the call, for a better word, to do more, to expand. So I'm going to slowly, and I say this very carefully, slowly grow to 14. Now, I love one-on-one work. It is definitely where I feel my zone of genius is. So I will be gradually increasing my fully booked number to 14. But I'm going to do this slowly in a very kind of highly sensitive, friendly way, where I add maybe 1 to 2 clients every so often over the next 6 to 8 months and gradually increase to this. So if you are interested, I'm going to look at taking 2 new clients on in October. As a thank you for listening to this podcast, I am going to offer £500 off the total price if you sign up before the end of October. So if you would love to look at this in more detail, please book in a discovery call, which you can find the link in my show notes. This is an informal, get to know you better kind of session. It is very much, how can I help? What's going on for you? This is how I work. Does this seem like a good fit? And I will tell you straight away if I am not the person for you, and I will signpost you to somebody who I know will. And if you are the right fit, then that's amazing. We can talk about what that would look like. As I said, I'm hoping this has given you some food for thought. You can go away and you can think on these journal prompts. You can really have that awareness around when this is coming up for you, remembering that it's completely normal. We all have these stories that really do hold us back. Our brain really is built for safety, not success. And so it will do everything it can to kind of hold us back and keep us in those known patterns. Our job is to create that awareness that we can actually pause and choose a different response. So I would love to know what your feelings and thoughts are here. Do reach out, do get in touch, and I'll be back soon. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so much.